So in this lecture today, in continuation with the previous lecture, we'll study about target identification. Target identification. A target, see, every drug has a specific target in a body. So whatever drug we take, every drug has a specific target in the body. But everyone is confused as to what this target is actually. What is this target? So a target is generally a single molecule that can be, basically it can be a gene, it can be a protein which is involved in a particular disease. So it can be it is basically a single molecule, and it can be a gene or a protein which is involved in a particular disease. So Paul Ehrlich stated that a chemical substance could selectively affect the physiological processes of the body. So practically speaking, each and every medicine that we use today is interacting with a protein target, all right, and either it activates, so it will either activate it or it will inhibit it, the function, and thus achieving the therapeutic effect. So you found out a target, so there is a drug, it hit a target. So that target most of the time majorly would be a protein, and it will either activate something or either it will inhibit something. By doing either of these things, what it does is that the function, that particular function, it can be anything, it gets affected. Either that function will be activated or that function will be inhibited, and by this there could be a therapeutic effect observed. Now these are there are more than 2 million proteins in our body, and we are familiar with the concept of only few of them. So that is something so amazing. How can one identify which protein stimulates or which protein inhibits, and what has which of its function gets affected by that drug? So therefore it is critical even during these early stages of drug discovery that researchers actually pick a target that can potentially interact or be affected by a drug molecule. So what is this target then? Target is the key molecule. It is the key molecule involved in a particular, so it's involved in a particular metabolic or signaling pathway specific to a disease condition. So it is the key molecule involved in a particular metabolic or signaling pathway specific to a disease condition. It can be a receptor, either it can be a protein, it can be an enzyme or enzymes for that matter, and it can be DNA or ribosomes. So it can be any of these. So people generally misinterpret this target as the lead compound. So lead compound is something different which we'll study further in the coming session, and target is entirely something different. So target if you look at its literal meaning, target means what? हम किसी चीज़ को टारगेट कर रहे हैं, गोल कर रहे हैं, एम कर रहे हैं. तो एक ड्रग अगर किसी टारगेट को एम कर रहा है कि क्या होगा वो, सो वी हैव लर्न दैट. सो पीपल जनरली मिस इंटरप्रिटेट दिस टारगेट एज लीड कंपाउंड्स. नो, इट्स एक्चुअली अ बायोलॉजिकल टारगेट. ठीक है, इट्स एक्चुअली अ बायोलॉजिकल टारगेट ऑन विच, सो आई फाइंड इट वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. So this is a biological target on which the drug will work. So the drug will act on this biological target. And by doing this, what will happen? So on this biological target, the drug will work, and by doing this, it will either modulate or treat the disease condition. तो पहले हम ये आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे कि किस टारगेट पर, किस पर्टिकुलर टारगेट पर हमें काम करना है. ऑल राइट, एंड that is the active site. So the current drug discovery approach, that is the rational drug discovery approach, actually ये उसका part है which we studied earlier. Target based approach rational drug discovery approach का part है. I mean, I said the opposite, like target based approach is a part of rational drug discovery. So this is the significance of it. So a drug or lead compound should not bind to other target. If I have a drug substance, it should bind to the target that we have aimed for, the active site, and not some other target. Why? Because if it does so, what will happen? There will be side effects. So if it should not bind to other targets or other proteins or enzymes, as it may cause side effects, and therefore I need to know the target, and that is like one of the most important significance of this approach. Know what you're doing, right? A very simple example from day to day life is that there is a wedding, ek shadi hai, and you know you'll have to buy a lehenga. Now you'll have to buy a lehenga or this piece of clothing, the wedding attire, and that is fixed. But if you don't know the bride, I don't know who the bride is, I have absolutely not, I don't have idea of her size, of her color, of her preferences for that matter, and I have not identified her, just as we have not identified our target. So मैंने पता ही नहीं है मुझे who's the bride, what she looks like, what her choices are. Will it make sense for me to then purchase the dress? No. That dress is of no use then. So I'm looking for, so therefore target identification is important. Now looking at a scientific example, I'm looking at acid inflammation, right? And any target, my target would be cyclooxygenase. That means if I were to discover a drug, मुझे एक drug चाहिए for what? Inflammation. So if I were to discover a drug for inflammation, my biological target identification would be the enzyme, that is, or I can directly draw from here, like my biological target would be the enzyme COX-2. So then it becomes a very specific drug target, मतलब बहुत specific drug का target बन गया है, and designing the molecule then becomes relatively easy. So there can be many pathways or enzymes responsible for inflammation, but I am interested in COX-2 enzyme. So there can be different pharma companies working on different types of inflammatory pathways. We will now test any of our lead compounds on these targets, right, in order to find out the most promising ones.